The entire United Kingdom was shaken when Camilla Parker Bowles was officially crowned queen, a title that, just a few decades ago, no one would have dared to imagine associated with the woman once seen as the other woman in the explosive marriage between Prince Charles and Princess Diana. From being cursed across newspaper headlines, Camilla has now stepped proudly onto the stage of glory, standing beside King Charles as a national symbol. But does that crown truly belong to her, or is it merely a royal mask being scrutinized by the public, who examine every line with suspicion? A recent survey revealed an uncomfortable truth. Only 14% of Britons support Camilla being called queen. The rest, many of whom grew up idolizing Diana, still fiercely cling to their emotional allegiance. In the hearts of millions, Diana remains the people's princess, the woman who dared to love, dared to hurt, and dared to fight back inside a cold palace. And Camilla? To many, she is still the symbol of betrayal wrapped in a royal robe. So what is truly happening within the heart of the British monarchy? Can Camilla erase the past and carve out a new legacy? Or will she always live in the silent yet immortal shadow of Diana? This isn't just a story about a crown, but a tragedy of love, power, and public sentiment. A silent battle that continues to burn in the soul of Britain. Camilla Parker Bowles, from rejected woman to unwelcome queen. The coronation of King Charles III was meant to be a historic moment of national unity. But when Camilla Parker Bowles was officially declared Queen of the United Kingdom, a complex wave of emotion swept across the country. The applause in the grand ceremony couldn't drown out the heavy silence that echoed in the hearts of millions of people who never forgot the image of Princess Diana, the woman who once stepped out of the shadows with a broken heart, only to be quietly replaced by a ghost of the past. Not by the love of the people, but by the power of the crown. Camilla once labeled the intruder, the other woman, the homewrecker, now sits upright on the throne, dressed in a magnificent gown, wearing a crown crafted from ancient diamonds. She walked beneath the vaulted ceiling of Westminster Abbey as if the past had left no scar. But that scar still bleeds in the public's heart. A YouGov poll shows that only 14% of Britons feel comfortable calling Camilla queen. This alarmingly low figure makes one thing clear. Though legally crowned, she has never won what truly matters, the trust and affection of the people. There is no denying that Camilla's rise is a stunning transformation. From a woman condemned by the press, forced to live in silence and shame for years, she slowly entered the royal inner circle with patience and strategy. But that very persistence also raises red flags. Many cannot forget the leaked, overly intimate phone calls between her and Prince Charles, the sultry whispers that came while he was still married to Diana. These were not romantic moments to be admired, but living proof of an extended betrayal unfolding while his legal wife was battling depression, pressure, and isolation. The image of Diana sitting alone before the cameras, her eyes shadowed and her smile forced, still haunts the British public like a permanent wrinkle on the face of the monarchy. And when Camilla, the woman many see as the root cause of that pain, now wears the title queen, it feels like a chapter of history being written in reverse. Like justice has been quietly rewritten, Camilla has tried to repair her image. She plays her part in the charity campaigns, attends events, smiles at the right moments, speaks with proper decorum. But no matter how hard she tries, she remains a polarizing figure. In popularity rankings among royal family members, Camilla routinely finds herself near the bottom ranking, just above scandal-ridden figures like Prince Andrew and, sadly, Prince Harry after his controversial departure with Meghan Markle. This reveals a harsh truth. The public may forgive, but they never forget. And Camilla, even with a crown upon her head, has never truly stepped out of the wreckage of the past she helped create. Camilla's ascent to the throne is not merely a personal story. It raises a much bigger question. On what foundation is power in the monarchy granted? Bloodline, love, public approval, or simply legal legitimacy on paper? If power is built on symbolism, then Diana is the eternal symbol. She didn't need a crown to become the queen of the people's hearts. Meanwhile, Camilla, despite having all the official recognition, has never been able to move the emotions of the public. And that is precisely why King Charles's new reign begins with hesitation. The public no longer hates Camilla as they once did, but they still cannot love her. They don't boo in protest, but neither do they applaud in welcome. They remain silent, and that silence is the loudest, coldest voice of all, a rejection that requires no words, because affection cannot be forced. Many observers believe that knowing this truth all too well, Camilla has chosen to retreat into the background. She avoids getting too involved in royal affairs, carefully avoiding the spotlight that now shines on Princess Catherine, who is emerging as a new symbol, winning the widespread affection that Camilla has never truly received. But even as she steps back, Camilla remains present on the throne, in ceremonies, and in every official royal document. She no longer needs to fight because the title is already hers. But honor that soft power Diana once possessed remains a luxury out of reach. Some say Camilla is a survivor, a woman who has weathered decades of media storms and prejudice to rise to the pinnacle of prestige. That is true, but her existence as a symbol is proof that resilience does not always come with love. In a monarchy increasingly reliant on public sympathy to endure, having a queen who is not beloved is a fracture the institution can no longer ignore. Camilla has become queen that is now irreversible, but whether she can become queen in the hearts of the people is another story entirely. A story without an ending, and perhaps one that may never have one, because the name Diana still echoes through every corner of Britain, a constant reminder that sometimes the crown does not rest on the head, but in the heart of the people. And that heart, even now, still does not belong to Camilla. Yet, in the very moment Camilla stepped onto the throne, in the spotlight of her new title, the whole of Britain seemed to hold its breath, because the name millions still carry in their hearts Diana once again rose in the collective memory, the woman who, to many, was the one truly worthy of being called queen, Diana Spencer, the young bride who entered the royal family in her 20s, with sorrowful eyes and a pure heart, was more than a symbol. She was a fresh wind that swept through the cold walls of Buckingham Palace, the first woman to make the British monarchy feel the power of love and compassion. While the world still praised luxury and grandeur, Diana knelt to embrace HIV patients, touched homeless children, and quietly wept for the suffering of ordinary people. She didn't do it for praise. She did it because she understood that those people didn't need ceremonies. They needed to be heard. Diana once dreamed of a fairy tale romance, the dream of any young woman entering a royal family. But no one told her that Prince Charles already had another princess in his heart, Camilla Parker Bowles. While the public rejoiced in the wedding of the century, Diana was already tasting a suffocating loneliness. The splendid palace walls could not warm a marriage gone cold. Instead, she faced distant conversations, avoided glances, and the ever-looming presence of a single name, Camilla. The marriage between Diana and Charles became nothing more than a glamorous shell for a drawn-out tragedy. In a bombshell interview, Diana once said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." That statement, coupled with her anguished eyes, struck deep in the public's heart, because they didn't just see a betrayed woman. They saw themselves in her helplessness, in the pain of a wife pushed aside, even while living in the spotlight of royalty. But rather than collapse, Diana rose. She turned her pain into purpose, her tears into a gentle weapon. She devoted herself fully to charity work. She traveled to impoverished regions, led campaigns against landmines, advocated for children, for AIDS patients, for people society had long ignored. No one forced her to do it. And it was precisely that voluntary spirit that made Diana extraordinary. Atrick Jeffson, her former private secretary, once said bluntly, Diana knew she might never be queen on paper, but she wanted to be queen in people's hearts. And she did. No throne was ever placed beneath her feet, but millions of hearts placed her on the throne. Diana's legacy doesn't lie in a crown. It lies in the smiles of the children she once held in her arms, in the eyes of the sick she silently held hands with, in every photo capturing the moment she crouched down on a roadside, hand touching the ground, eyes looking straight into the faces of those the world had forgotten. That is why, when Camilla wears the crown, the feeling in the hearts of the British people is a strange mix. Not hatred, but regret. Regret for a woman who was once a symbol, who once dreamed a royal dream, only to wake up in a nightmare. Many believe that if Diana were still alive, today's monarchy would look completely different. A Queen Diana would never have had to strive to be loved because she was loved long before any title was bestowed upon her. And that is why, more than 2 decades after her tragic death, Britain has never truly healed. It wasn't just a car crash in a tunnel in Paris. It was the shattering of a dream, a trauma never fully repaired, a wound that silently bleeds each time someone utters the words, Queen Camilla. Camilla may hold the crown, may carry out royal duties with calm and professionalism, but she cannot reach into the public's heart the way Diana once did. That is something irreplaceable, because Diana wasn't just an image. She was emotional. She was a collective memory, a blazing flame in the heart of a nation that once believed the monarchy could feel as close as family. People still recall that after Diana's death, millions of flowers were laid outside the gates of Kensington Palace. No one asked them to. There were no official calls, but those flowers were a nation's farewell. The way the British people crowned Diana Queen of their hearts, without a decree, without a coronation, only with genuine love. And now, as another woman steps onto the throne, the void Diana left behind becomes more visible than ever. Camilla may be queen in title, but in the public's heart, that crown still belongs to the woman who died in tragedy, yet lives on in memory. And yet, even as Camilla wears the crown, standing solemnly beside King Charles in the most grand coronation ceremony of the 21st century, there are whispers that refuse to be silenced. Whispers not from the commoners outside the palace gates, but from within the royal family itself, from those who bear royal blood. And the greatest shock came from a woman who never takes shortcuts, who never hides her thoughts. Princess Anne, a bombshell revelation has just been brought to light by David Emanuel, the man who once stitched every thread of Diana's legendary wedding gown. In a recent interview, he said he had heard of a very sensitive situation that occurred during a pre-coronation party. While guests were raising glasses in celebration, Princess Anne, with a chilling tone and eyes as sharp as blades, is said to have turned to Camilla and stated, without a hint of hesitation, "Your queen consort, not queen." The room fell silent. No one spoke, but their eyes said everything. A wave of quiet tension swept through the room, filled with nobility, because that wasn't just a sentence. It was a direct stab at a wound that had never healed in the royal heart. The wound named Diana. David Emanuel's story ignited a storm of controversy, because if it's true, then there is no doubt that the royal family has never truly accepted Camilla as a proper queen. They may shake her hand, they may share a table, appear in the same photo frame, but the difference between a legal title and one granted by the people's hearts is still a chasm too wide to bridge. And Princess Anne's statement that she is known for her firmness and absolute loyalty to royal protocol was not just a reminder of royal grammar. It was a declaration that while the throne may accept Camilla, the hearts of those who carry memories of Diana never have. No one has forgotten that. At the very coronation ceremony, Camilla was no longer called queen consort, a phrase that the palace had emphasized repeatedly to appease public opinion. Instead, on the invitations, on the signage, on all official protocols, there were only 2 words: the Queen Faustine, a change that seemed small but caused deep undercurrents within the royal family. Because with Diana's memories still vivid, Camilla claiming the title that was once denied to Diana, the woman who should have been queen, became something unacceptable to many. The presence of the Spencer family, especially Charles Spencer, Diana's brother, at the coronation drew everyone's eyes to the smallest movements. While Camilla shone in her splendid coronation robe, Spencer's gaze remained icy, seemingly piercing through the luxurious symbolism and returning to the memory of a sister who once cried alone behind the palace's closed doors. The presence of Camilla's own children, Tom and Laura in the VIP seats, added fuel to the fire. For the public, seeing individuals without royal blood seated more prominently than Diana's close friends was a shock. Many bluntly asked, did the royal family deliberately erase Diana's existence to clear the way for Camilla? In a country where loyalty to traditional values remains the ultimate measure of respect and reverence, Camilla's rise is not just personal. It symbolizes the battle between past and present, between memory and reality. Sadly, in this struggle, the name Diana is too large a shadow for anyone to eclipse. That is why no matter how much Camilla tries, no matter how many charity events she attends, how many moving speeches she gives, the public's affection for her remains extremely limited. A recent poll shows that only 14% of Britons support the title Queen for Camilla, a record low, placing her just above scandal-plagued figures like Prince Andrew and, regrettably, Prince Harry in the royal popularity rankings. This not only reflects hesitation, but is a direct message from the public. Camilla may be the king's wife, but she cannot inherit Diana's emotional legacy. For in the hearts of millions, Diana is not a lost symbol. She is a beautiful scar in royal history, proof that even those who wear the crown can suffer, can fail, but still rise by compassion and a kind gaze. Princess Anne, in that moment, may have uttered just a few brief words, yet their echo is enough to shake the corridors long accustomed to silence, because sometimes only one true statement, amid a sea of ceremony and calculation, is enough to remind us that there are people that cannot simply be replaced. Over the past 25 years, Buckingham Palace has executed a quietly methodical campaign to reshape Camilla's image, a planned program through time, small step by small step, choosing each word carefully and assigning each title as if by chance, but with deep intent. Initially, she was referred to as a close girlfriend, a gentle phrase to avoid stirring pain over Charles and Diana's broken marriage. Then that phrase evolved into the indispensable love, an implicit message to the public that Camilla was the unchanging choice, one no one could replace. From there, the transition continued unabated. Duchess of Cornwall, a less sensitive title than Duchess of Wales, then consort, then Queen Consort, and finally, without warning, the Queen. No referendum, no clear explanation, just a quiet Sunday morning. Coronation invitations were sent out, and the name Camilla, the Queen, appeared like a blade splitting the nation's emotions in two. The public was stunned, not because they didn't anticipate it, but because they realized they had been guided subtly for years without even knowing it. Patrick Jeffson, Diana's former private secretary, did not hesitate to criticize. In a recent interview, he bluntly stated that the royal family had played a long game, covered in the velvet fabric of loyalty and honor, but in reality, a strategy to manipulate public opinion. According to Jeffson, the palace was not transparent, but instead drip-fed information strategically, leaving the public unsure what was true and what was a constructed image. And it is impossible not to mention a pivotal moment in this strategic run: Queen Elizabeth's sustained speech on the occasion of her 70th anniversary on the throne. It was a sacred and emotional moment, when all of Britain looked to the woman who had devoted a lifetime to the crown. And in that moment, Elizabeth, the ever-cautious and deliberate speaker, said a line that was instantly quoted everywhere. "I sincerely hope that, when the time comes, Camilla will be known as Queen Consort, not not Queen Camilla, but a subordinate title attached, not autonomous, but just 1 year later." When the crown was placed on Camilla's head during the coronation alongside King Charles III, all those cautious words seemed to have never existed. Not a single clarification, not a single line of explanation. And just like that, the word consort disappeared from official documents, from event programs, from media slogans. Camilla is now mentioned on equal footing with previous queens, including Elizabeth II, without any distinguishing qualifier. This sudden change, instead of evoking a sense of dignity, only deepened the cracks in the public's perception. To many, it was nothing less than a ceremonial whitewashing, an effort to erase Camilla's controversial past with a linguistic sleight of hand. They haven't forgotten the leaked love letters, the late-night phone calls heard by an entire nation. They haven't forgotten Diana's tears, the woman who once said in a famous interview, "There were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." And for that reason, Camilla now being called the Queen is not just a simple promotion in rank. It is a sharp blow to the memory of a nation, a place where the image of Diana still stands as an irreplaceable symbol. With only 14% supporting the title of Queen for Camilla, and the majority still cautious or silently opposed, the palace may have won in terms of ceremony, but it is losing entirely in the battle for trust. In an age where transparency is the only thing that can sustain the people's loyalty, the lack of clarity in the change of Camilla's title is not just a communication failure. It is a sign of an outdated royal management style that still relies on the belief that the public will forget if things are done slowly enough, grandly enough, and royally enough. But Britain has changed, and the people now, more than ever, understand that wearing a crown is not enough to become someone a whole nation wishes to bow to in reverence. However, amid the churning tides of public opinion, there remains a significant segment of people ready to raise the flag in support of Camilla. They do not see her as the other woman, but as a resilient figure who silently stood by Charles through every storm of the monarchy. For decades, under scrutiny, ridicule, and condemnation, Camilla remained behind the scenes without retaliation, without seeking sympathy, simply steadfast in doing one thing: supporting Charles. Every step she took beside him, from international tours to community projects, was an unspoken yet powerful commitment that she chose to stay. Despite all the scornful eyes, Ingrid Seward, the veteran editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, did not hesitate to speak out in defense of Camilla. In a widely discussed interview, she emphasized that the public should learn to accept Camilla if they truly love Charles. For Ingrid, the more than 50 years of love between the two is the most convincing proof that Camilla deserves a place in the royal family. She argued, if a man has become king, and he wants this woman by his side for the rest of his life, then why should we the people stubbornly deny it? A clever appeal that strikes the heart more than any royal reasoning. But it is precisely the matter of emotion where everything becomes tangled. A recent independent poll poured cold water on the fragile trust the royal family had been trying to build around Camilla's image. Nearly 40% of Britons expressed opposition to her becoming queen, believing the title to be an insult to towering figures like Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. They do not deny Camilla's diligence or goodwill, but to them, affection cannot be manufactured through titles or time. It requires something deeper, a connection from heart to heart. "No one can replace Diana in my heart," one Twitter user wrote, along with an emotional black and white photo of the princess in her humanitarian outfit in Angola. I don't blame Camilla. I just feel sorrow for Diana, and for those who turned their backs on her when she needed them most. Just a single tweet, but it attracted thousands of shares and comments, once again affirming that the wound called Diana has never truly healed in Britain's heart. Camilla's presence on the throne, with all its polished exterior and prestigious title, still cannot erase the image of the woman who once bent down to AIDS patients, cradled abandoned children, or quietly wiped away tears in front of cameras after being betrayed. Even on the coronation day itself, that division quietly endured beneath layers of velvet and crown. The Spencer family, Diana's kin, was present, silent and reserved. Camilla's children beamed brightly behind their mother. Two worlds, two realities, two emotional currents running parallel, never touching, yet impossible to separate. To some, it was the day she was finally vindicated after years of endurance. To others, it marked the official bearing of Diana's unfinished dream beneath royal bells. All of this reveals that Camilla isn't just a person, she has become a symbol of division. Some of Britain empathize, understand, and wish to close the past. The rest cannot, not out of hate, but because they are still mourning a lost icon. They do not hate Camilla personally, but they reject her role as a new chapter written in cold, unsympathetic language. The question isn't whether Camilla is worthy. The real question is Britain ready to accept her as part of the royal legacy? And at this moment, the answer remains a question mark hanging between palace splendor and restless hearts. Amid the controversy over Camilla's legitimacy, a surprising voice has stirred public sentiment. Patrick Jepson, Diana's former private secretary, claimed that if Diana were alive in 2023, she might have accepted Camilla. Not because of simple forgiveness, but from maternal instinct, sensitivity to human emotions, and her lifelong desire to see her ex-husband and children happy. Diana understood human nature better than anyone in the palace, Patrick said. If she had been treated with respect, if everything had been transparent and honest, she might have chosen to let go. It was a shocking statement because it painted Diana with a heart far bigger than the wounds she bore. Yet precisely because of that, the grief in Diana's fans felt even heavier. What lay at the heart of their injustice wasn't just Camilla becoming queen, but the way Diana was erased from that picture of happiness. Through the coldness and manipulation she endured during her darkest years, the public still remembers the recorded tapes of Diana crying alone in her bedroom when her husband was absent on her birthday. They remember her confession in that 95 interview. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. And they remember that while Diana fought to salvage a crumbling love, Camilla quietly appeared backstage, not as a friend, but as a replacement positioned long before. So although Jepson spoke the truth, and Diana might have chosen forgiveness, millions of her admirers still could not do so in her place. Not out of stubbornness, but because they cannot believe in a future where the betrayed woman must smile and bless the one who helped shatter her fairy tale romance with Charles. Then, as if to deepen the wound, the media painted an emotional scenario. If Diana were alive, would she have sat at Charles and Camilla's coronation? And if so, what would it have looked like for her to sit just a few rows behind Andrew Parker, Bowles Camilla's ex-husband? A woman betrayed by 2 names, now seated between 2 crowns? It's hard to imagine her heart at peace in that moment. That image, though it never happened, haunts like a deleted scene from history's reel. It carries countless heartbreaking questions. What if Diana hadn't died that night? What if Charles had chosen to keep his family instead of chasing his fate? What if Camilla had stepped aside instead of pressing onward through controversy? History never entertains ifs, but the human heart can't stop asking what could have been, especially when someone like Diana is the central figure. She may never have worn the crown, but in the imagination of millions, Diana remains the queen without a throne, a symbol of compassion, of sorrow turned into strength, of an unreturned love. That Camilla officially receives the title the Queen is more than a dynastic advancement. It's a slash across the heart of history, a reminder that truth doesn't always conquer time, and that the people's beloved is not always the one named on parchment. So even as Charles looks at Camilla with trust, and Britain is urged to accept reality, silent souls still whisper in the wind that Diana should have been there, not out of bitterness, not to reclaim the throne, but to prove that a woman can be broken, can be hurt, yet never be forgotten. The coronation of King Charles and Camilla wasn't just a royal ceremony, it was a test of Britain's collective memory. As the throne was handed over, applause rang out, but somewhere among the millions of watching eyes, Diana's image quietly reappeared. She wasn't there physically, but she was present as an indelible spirit. Camilla's ascension did not just reopen old wounds, it forced the kingdom to confront unresolved feelings, regret, outrage, and an unnamed longing. While 60% of the public chose to move forward, 40% remained tethered to the past with an unfinished dream named Diana. That divide is not mere statistics. It's proof that a crown can be granted. But public sentiment cannot be decreed. Camilla may sit on the throne, but the shadow of the people's princess still drapes the crown with unspoken emotion. This tale isn't just about a title. It's a fragmented epic where love, betrayal, loss, and forgiveness coexist within a royal family that never ceases to intrigue.